It's been a while since I talked about any of my narrow gauge layout that I did. The narrow gauge layout you would have seen at the, if you'd gone there, the Statfold Barn Model Railway show. I did it in agreement with Tony's Trains of Rugby, who kind of encouraged the route of narrow gauge as my exhibition layout. And I haven't done an exhibition layout really in the scale of this one. This was 3 meters long in the end. I did a small one the year before, which was good fun. I tried to make a small layout which didn't really work, and I ended up ripping it up. This narrow gauge layout was in a view that I'd be able to do a bit more with it sometime. Currently the layout is up on the shelves above me, so you can see it just up there, and it goes along. I have other bits on other shelves for the fiddle yard, which kind of worked. I didn't particularly have fun with the fiddle yard. You needed 2 people to make it kind of arguably seamless. The idea to have a loop going around entertains me quite a lot. But for this episode, I thought I'd put the video on actually finishing off some details on, I'll grab it now. To give you all a better idea, obviously I'm filming from just sitting here, and I've got 2 meters worth of shelf up here, and the layout's just up there. The fiddle yards, as I said, they're just here and here, but I kind of would like to just completely change them. It'd be cool to just not use them. So what I want to work on is the bridge layout, which is just here. So we'll get that down and have a look at it and remind ourselves of what it looks like. So here it is. Actually, looking back at it, it's kind of cool. Obviously we've got a bridge that we built up with trestles, which is just balsa wood. I got kind of a view of how it looked at the Vale of Idle, and that interested me quite a lot because it was cool. It was trestles, and my first experience of trestles was when I was younger. My Uncle George built some trestles in his garden railway, and it went all the way around. And he made a jig. He showed me this cool jig. He put the bits of wood in and had the sections in. It was really cool. So I built this up kind of with a jig paper with pins, and you would have seen it if you check out the bridge episode as I did this. The things I remember that I liked about this, I really liked having the double, I guess, supportive track on the inside here. You can see just here, obviously I've bent some around. It's going around a curve as well, which was cool. I was a bit nervous at the time doing it, thinking, will this cause trouble? The other bits that I liked about it is obviously doing this bank. It's not really finished. It's quite shiny in places. I guess it looks wet, but fine. You've got the static grass like that. I love the trees. I like the trees, how they hide the entrance hole. About the show, no one really moaned at me. I had one guy complain that the connecting sections here would have had a beam going across, but actually if you go to the Vale of Idle, all it is one that connects up further up here going along. So I'm kind of happy with how I am with the construction of that. The main thing that I really didn't like when doing this was doing the water. That took absolutely ages to cure. At the time I got worried because I had little white marks up here underneath bits, but the truth is that went away over time, which is great. I just needed some weeks in my favor, whereas at the time it was day by day doing this. So that's the layout as it is. What would I like to do if I was going to do a bit more? I know that I would like to put a fence to stop people falling off. Not that I expect them to be walking along. The options of fencing is you could use some of the ratio fencing kits. I've actually only got 2 pieces. I've got some other bits and odds and sods, like you could probably choose what you want to use for it. Like I've got all these different ones, but that doesn't really fit in with the real one. I'll show you in a second what the real one looks like, but my thoughts are you could put this along here and it's a bit more representative, but I need 2 lots. I'll check in the loft and see if I've got any more for it. It's that, or I can use, I've got this wire here that I can use and make all the little posts and solder all across, but that sounds like a lot of work considering I just want to have some fun. What we're trying to do on these model railways is represent something that we like a lot of the time. Yes, you could be completely perfect and make exactly how you want, and that would be great. And maybe later on I can do the fence that matches, but using this fencing, which is the wooden inside fencing, arguably will be enough. I'll just trim off the tops. What I'll do is I'll show you how the real one looks. If you look here, some pictures I took when I went there, you've got this wired fencing and a kind of an equal step, not completely equal, where they've put this together, and that looks great. And I'm thinking I can just, you know, glue them onto the side, and that would look nice. Yeah, so that's that. Another bit I want to point out is they've got some nice gravel that was down here, and it was grey, white and dark grey stones going there. So I want to do that. So you can see there's no mud coming down here. So what I'd like to do is add where the where my mud is, and actually add the stones in here, glue them onto a certain point. Obviously I don't need to match it perfectly, but you can get the gist of it. You can see with the trestle, like on my one, they've got a cross beam there, 2 straight bits, angle, and actually just under here is where you see that beam. And I'll just flick over here. I have some pictures when I was closer up underneath, so you see these 2 wooden beams, and I actually do have the wooden beam going underneath, so I've matched it pretty well. Obviously I haven't got my bolts holding it in like you have here, but it's pretty good. But you can see here you've got bushes on one side, so I feel like maybe I want to do that, add in some more bushes, and then have the stones on the other side coming in, meeting the water. And you can see how high the water was when we went. It was kind of springtime when I went over with Joey and Tony. I had a really good time. So yeah, you can see how high the stones got up to, and see they're very light grey stones, and I've got some stuff that I can use for this that will represent it really well, I believe. But no, you know, I just looked at how the construction went as it got to the wall, and had a look at the bricks on the side and how things had grown up around it. So that was nice. Obviously going a bit far there, but if I just pop back and my fencing, I think I will just go with something that I've got, paint it silver, and we can go from there. I don't think anyone's going to judge me. And actually, if you look, you've got 1, 2, and then the third trestle just in water. Turning back to here, how would we do it then? So we'd have the, I'd argue that we can use, I feel like this is the steepest one. So I would have it where we have the stones coming to about here. So we can come onto the water line across there, and that'd be good. We do something like that, and then from here maybe have some more bushes on this side to make that a bit brighter, because this is quite a dark scene when you look at it. It'd be nice to brighten it up. Something else that I'd like to do, apart from doing the fence and adding in the gravel, is add some clouds. The sky is quite plain, and I've always liked the idea of painting in some clouds. So what we can do is have a little practice on a test piece, let's call it, and then add some bits in which you can add to the rest of the layout, and try and be arguably consistent throughout doing it. I'll look up in the loft. It's currently the evening, and the loft has no lighting at the moment because I'm doing some revamping work, and then we'll try and find some more of this, which I believe I will have some more up there. Yeah, I look forward to getting this on. I think I'll paint it first, but we can talk about it as I do it. It is now the next day, and I've been in the loft because there's actually some light, and I've got the skylight that lets the light in, but I don't have any lighting up there. Like I've said, I need to wire up the tubes so I want to have more light up there, nice light. But I've got another packet here. It's white, and yeah, we're going to use this. I'm going to spray it all black and then kind of just dust some silver over the top of it, so that'll be fine for that. I'll paint it first before putting it on, but I want to make sure though is looking at these pieces that I've already trimmed out, is on that what maybe we'd call the inside edge. When we stick that on, like I don't paint that bit, so I need to scrape it off after painting it, so then I can use some super glue to stick it on. I'm going to wedge it over to the end, and just so it represents in the best way possible the fencing. What I'm going to do is with some cutters, I don't need to show it on the camera, what I do is I get a bit closer. So what I'm going to do is where we have these bits, when I look on the picture there's nothing on the top, so it's up to flush. So we're just going to get my shears, I've got some Tamiya ones here, and they cut really nicely. We'll just work our way across the top so it's flush. It doesn't need to be super pretty. I think once we paint it and then we go through the route of dusting it with like a quick dry brush, I think, of silver over the top, and then if it's too shiny we can murk it down with some weathering juices, let's call it, so like some washes or some powders or whatever we want, or even get the airbrush out afterwards and do that. What I do whilst snipping this and talking to you, one thing I noticed when I was at the show, and actually because I filmed from this angle, when I worked on this before you couldn't see it, under here you'll see sections that aren't painted up here, and a lot of people were kind of pointing out to me, which is very kind of them. So I think when I go for changing the colour of these, because I'm very dark, you know, burnt umber type colour, I want to kind of make it that grey browny colour painting these, so I do want to change this, so I'll make sure I touch up those areas when I do it. In what order do I do everything? That's a good question. If I do these and then I want to paint this with that more greyish colour, then these are going to get in the way, so I think we do the work for these, trim them off, and then just go from there. I was thinking about adding the stones in here as well. If we just move them back, if we add the stones in here, I've got to let that dry. I'd like to then soak it with some watered down PVA, and that's not going to be an overnight thing, so I think we do that last, so then we can get on with everything else first, paint all this area and stuff like that, then we do the stones as that final touch, and whatever else we think at the time. If there's anything you think that we should add to the layout, please let me know. This is the end one before it gets to the fiddle yard, but I like the idea of where, if I just tap out a bit here, there we are. So where we have this being the end, this is actually the beginning of a new scene for when it goes round a corner. I think that capping it off is nice, but capping it off onto something else straight away to then have the fiddle yard run down the back, that, I don't know, that entertains me, because if, you know, this could be onto a new scene, it could be a town scene directly afterwards, it doesn't matter, it goes from one to the other. I think it's very important to keep things interesting, especially for myself. I don't think it's a case where everything has to completely marry up in the way that you have, well, after the bridge it had a main road, it had this, it had that, so well, no, this is me having some fun doing some narrow gauge stuff, so it's very important that I do whatever I find interesting. This hobby will attract those like I am at some points, that I want to be absolutely perfect and match things exactly, and sometimes you just want to have a giggle, have some fun. You can get a bit lost in not getting anything done because you're worried that you can't make it like the real thing, which is fair enough. There's some fantastic work, like obviously Pete Waterman has done with the Making Tracks crew, building up the Milton Keynes station and trying to make everything absolutely perfect, and it's stunning. I went to the Chester Cathedral, I think it was 2 weeks ago now. Obviously talking on this, I didn't want to release the video, I've got a lot going on with work and things at the moment, but when I went over there it was just stunning, because I watched some of the videos that the guys did for Making Tracks, and I enjoyed seeing how the continuity was made, and very handmade things. I was so impressed at what was being done, and yeah, really commend them for what they've done that. I'm sure many of you have seen that, you know, let me know if you have been and seen it, or you just watched some videos online. I've seen a few friends from the YouTube creators world, they've been over there, and it's nice to see them enjoying themselves. Richard from New Junction, he's been there, part of the Acura Scale group, running locos around there, which is really great to see him over there. He puts nice little social media pictures up from time to time of all that kind of thing, so it's always nice to see what he's up to, which is good. Really nice guy to talk to. If you ever meet Richard, say hi to him. Well, I don't need me to say that, I'm sure you already want to say hi. Yeah, so really you can see what I've been trying to do with these. We just trim the tops off so we go flush, and then we're going to stick them on, but not now. I think what I do is I'll paint them with a primer of black, and then I'll dry brush them silver. Before I dry brush them silver, just in case you haven't done dry brushing before, what I'll do is I'll do the primering, and then on camera I'll do a quick bit of dry brushing just to show you, just so you can have a bit of fun having a go yourself if you haven't done it before. A lot of people have, but for those that haven't, I'll be able to show you. So obviously you've got white and black now. They will be all painted black. You know, maybe even just having them black on there will be great. If you're gonna put any kind of color on these things, I understand color scales down, so I don't want it to have a really bright silver to it, so maybe I even just dry brush it with the gray, so it doesn't pop out too brightly. But that's that. I think the next stage for this, which probably won't be today, I'm actually gonna go off to the cinema. When I come back to this, I think I'll just paint these bits a different color, which I think will be really enjoyable. When I painted these before, the paint soaked in really nicely, and we had some cool effects going on. The second coat of paint going on will get rid of some of that natural wood look, so it'll be interesting if I'm about to go and ruin this, but either way I'll be having a go, and that's the important thing. So for dry brushing, I've got like an airbrush paint here. It's really thin, and there's nothing wrong with that. What it is you just don't want to have too much on the brush when you do your dry brush. I primer these black, so they're all reasonably to the colour I've desired. Colour. So I've got this grey. The main reason I'm using this grey is I don't think, I'm just looking at my colour selection, don't have any kind of thick greys. So I'm going to put just a little bit on that. Obviously, give your paints a good shake. Going to give a mix, because they will separate, and then they'll get all like the thin watery paint come out of it. It's my old palette. I've been doing some Warhammer stuff, so it's obviously far too much paint on there. With the brush, you don't want to have too much on the brush. So I've got a pot of paint. Normally you'd want to water down the paint with the brush, and you don't want to get too much on the brush when you do it. So what I do is if I tilt this up, got my fan blowing on me, let's turn it off. You get a little bit of the water, and you can tap it on there, and then obviously you can moisten the brush slightly, just spread it out a bit, so you only get a little bit of the end of the brush done, and then only get a little bit of paint on there. You don't have to get much. What you can do is do a little swirl, see how much is on there, and then just dust until you feel you've got a certain amount, and then on your skin you can have a little play. And obviously I've not got enough there, so this is very thin paint. I don't know how well this is going to work out, but what it is, we try this. What I'm going to do is just really go in one direction, going against the grain, and then come down here. Not much is coming off of this brush, if anything at all, so we're going to try and use a little bit more, but I don't want to go and paint it grey. That'd be a bit of a problem, because we don't want it to be grey. But it doesn't have to be really dry paint, and it's called dry brushing. The problem you get with dry paint when it's on there, you get like a chalky finish, and you want to try and avoid that, because it just doesn't always look as nice. So at the moment we've got like a nicer grayer shade going on there, so I'm just going to work my way across. It doesn't need to be a work of art. Obviously I'm over explaining for some of it, but here I've got far too much paint on there. If I came on, it would just be grey. So an old palette board always works nice as a texture palette, and also your hand, you can use a texture palette, and when you see that texture coming back on your hand, you know that you're doing all right with it. Obviously do a couple of swirls, a couple of lines. Once you know there's a certain amount on there, you just keep coming along, just work your way along and go from there. So that is dry brushing. See, there's going to be things you can use for dry brushing, which is blending colors together, but just don't let it get too too wet. So at the moment I've gone a bit too grey there, but that's all right. It's not going to offend anyone. It's meant to represent the metal, so it's got a bit of a lighter point on top. And we just work our way across. It doesn't have to be completely uniform, so if you miss little bits, that's not going to really hurt anyone, is it? So yeah, just going to brush away on these last bits. And that is a simple case of dry brushing. If you feel you want to kind of change up a little bit or want to go back, you can just dust over with a bit of a darker colour. I'm going to do both sides and all 4 of these, and that will be all I'll be doing for that. And then we'll stick it on the layout once I've painted that wood that new colour. I just need to figure out how I'm going to do it and what colour I'm going to do. But in the meantime, I'll just do a bit of dry brushing on these bits and spend some time wondering what to do. As for paints, I've just kind of looked at mixing. I've got a khaki brown mixed with a sea grey by the Air range. The reason again for Air is when you paint things on, you keep detail. If you keep the paint thin, if you have the paint thick, you lose detail. And at the moment we can see the fibrous marks of the wood. I've mixed 1-to-1 mix of the paint here. I've got an old paintbrush and I've put some of the colouring on here. It's currently wet, but you can see that kind of lighter shade there. We remind ourselves of how it looks, it is that lighter shade. I almost then need to, I guess, dry brush an even lighter shade again onto it, but we'll have an experiment. We can always paint over it if it doesn't work. So I'm going to paint up all the legs and see how that looks once it's dried. I like the idea of brightening it up a bit because that was dark, that was dark, that was dark. It looks a bit gloomy. So I'll come back to you probably tomorrow when it's dried and I've had a play and I can tell you what I've done. So you can see the lighter colour now. I've dry brushed, so you can see the texture of the wood. So that looks a bit nicer now. So when the eye looks at it, there's no just one uniform colour. I've painted the same colour as the bottom on the top as well. Dry brushed it. I think it looks nice. It's got that kind of sun bleached colouring to it. Underneath, not that you're going to look too much, but I've painted so yeah, it's not showing the balsa wood like it was before. So when someone's taking a nice shot like this, it should still look nice, which would be good. So I'm really happy with that. It's come out really nicely. There's not, like I said, a uniform finish on it. There's a nice dry brushed finish. It's looking, I think, nicer than before, which means actually we can go on to the next stage, which I think will be adding the stone coming down here. The stone I've gone for is what I picked up a little while ago to go in wagons. It is by, turn it around, so Atwood Aggregates. It looks nice. It reminds me of the stone. I'll just show you the stone to remind you of this stone. So I kind of felt like that is similar. We'll go from there, and yeah, we can put it on. What I'm going to do is paint on some wood glue on here. I want to bring it down to, I don't know, I feel like bringing it down to here, or you know, towards here. That's a lot of painting on wood glue going on there. So I'm gonna do that now, so then that can dry, see how it's looking after shaking it off, and then I'll put on some more where it's missing, and then use some watered down PVA glue to really stick it down. So yeah, what I do is I put the PVA glue on, and then I'll show you the fun bit of shaking on the ballast. Okay, so you can see I have added the PVA glue, and I want to sprinkle this on. I'm going to open up the packet a bit more to make it easy to spread. My paintbrush is covered in glue, so I need to make sure I clean it. So I'm just going to try and do a nice sprinkling on here. It's going to be messy, but it won't be the first layer. We're going to do some more layers of this. Let's move this out of the way so it doesn't fall off onto the floor where I'm sitting. You can scoop up the excess of this afterwards, and we can use it for the second layer. Just be patient when you're doing it. You don't have to go and dump loads on to one area. You can see what's seeping through. One area that's going to be tricky is underneath the bridge, so we're going to angle this when we do it. You can see some bits, it's hard for you to see it. If I zoom in, we have some bits of it you can see soaking into the wood glue. Just using all like one of the school PVA glues that Hobbycraft sell. They do the big pots. They don't dry so quickly, which is nice for this because you get more curing time. I'm gonna have to make some bigger piles here you're not gonna see anything now. I'll put it on wide angle, you can see all the bristly bits. So really I'm just aiming in here. It's kind of great. I'm actually pretty happy with how this is looking right now. Anything you're struggling with, obviously you can go in with your fingers and drop them where you want, or you can get a spoon. But this is pretty good. I can leave this to dry overnight when I get back from work tomorrow. It is the next day, and as you can see, this is the stoniness that's on here. I have been dusting some of it off, just having a look at if there's any loose spots that I don't want to attack too much, but working my way through it, I'm kind of pretty happy with how it's worked out. I think I'll put one more layer on to build up a height, so really you just need to get rid of the excess on here. I'll kind of brush it off initially so I control where everything's going, and then I'll tap it upside down and make it off the bits that haven't come off from the brushing, so to speak. The idea of having that extra layer is so we have that little bit more height, so it looks a bit more believable. At the moment you can see bits of the shiny river underneath, and some of the shininess could be from the PVA glue as well, because that does give normally a glossy finish. You can get matte PVAs and stuff like that, but I have this. I've got the PVA on, and using the stones that I used, or the ballast that I used previously and then shook off, I've put them on here. I was trying to put them on really nicely, but clearly failed. There's an argument you can do it nice out the bag, little shake and shimmy around. I'm really happy that I've decided to go further up this bank. I think that's gonna make a bit of a difference. Now the second layer is on here. It's built up much different kind of contour up here versus the water. Very happy about that, how that all looks. Obviously I just need to get the excess of it off. So the hope is that not all of it falls off, which means that if it doesn't all fall off, you manage to glue it, which is great. So just work your way across with a brush, knock off anything extra, and that will be job done for the ballast, really. If I can hold on to my brush. That's it all brushed off. I think that looks really nice. It reminds me of the real thing, which is good. I'm really glad I've gone up this banking with it. I think just had a few little bushy bits in here, just to kind of finish that off there, maybe grow up here a little bit. And then on the other side, yeah, we'll add some more bushes in here, but no stones on this side. I think bushes down to the water. But we'll do that in a moment. What I want to do now is work on the fence. With our fences, as you know, we painted them black and then did a quick dry brush over the top to give it a bit of colouring. But we're going to have to stick it together in the middle, and we don't really want to have, well, I don't want to have a really large central pillar halfway down it. So what we're going to do is get the cutters and come in here nicely. And I'm just going to trim them here, and hopefully they'll trim nice and flush. Then I've got a nice flat edge to trim them. So I'm filming on camera as well, it's always tricky. So that's that. Obviously you can see that it's white underneath. What we can do is, where we have that excessive bit there, we're just going to trim a tiny bit off all of them, because we won't have a flat edge just at the moment. And then what we'd be doing is stick them together, but not that way around. We want to match the angles and everything. What I don't want to do is stick to an edge. On here there's a little lip, so we're just going to cut that so it's flush all the way. It's just flat all the way across, really. It's going white where I'm trimming it off, but we can always dust in a bit of paint where we need to. So that's that. So that's now flat where it's going to be gluing on to that. To glue it on, firstly I will do it on a board, bit of wood that I got from a hardware store. I'm going to stick them together here. I'm going to put some glue on the end and then squish it together. I'm going to use some activator. I'll use the other view of the camera. I'm going to use some activator to spray on one side, glue to go on the other side, and hopefully it'll go together. I've got quite a thick glue here, and the beauty of a thick glue is I believe there's a bit more body to hold on to it for later, though it will take longer to dry. Thin glues generally, I find, dry a lot quicker. So then we get activator on the end there. Make sure we did get it. It's not very wet, this one. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to line it up by eye and poke it together, and just going to hold it there longer than you think. Normally when you think it's enough time and then put it apart, it will generally be not enough time and it will fall apart. So maybe I'll be thinking, oh, now it'll be ready. I'll still wait probably another 20 seconds and it'll be all right. And then we'll repeat the same for the other side. And then hopefully we can then just glue that together onto the bridge and go from there. Okay, so that should be okay. Really easy, you know, I'm not leaning on it, trying to pull it off, but that's okay. So we now have a hard to spot join in the middle, which is great. So I do the other, I'll do the other side, and then we'll stick it onto the bridge. We have our bridge fence here. What I want to do is put the pillars on the outside. It kind of means they look more similar to each other. They're going to drop in about here. So I'm not sure how to go about gluing it, because if you try and glue each one and stick it on, you're going to have a hard time. I have to consider the very end ones. We might want to chop the post shorter so that it can sink in a bit easier. This side seems all right, but this other side, it's all a bit firm in there. Maybe I can drill a hole or poke a hole, but it doesn't look like it. So what I'm going to do is trim off what I need to and go from there. I don't think it's going to really affect anything, and then that can sit there nicely. So how do we go about gluing this? I think really we just have a go, really. I'll stick a bit on each one, and then we can neaten it up afterwards with some paint. We won't use any activator. So what I'm going to do is maybe on the last ones I can use I don't know, like a stick to put some glue on and then poke it on, but we'll put it on most of them and we'll just be brave and stick on. We're gluing onto paint, which offers lots of issue because generally the paint will come off and we'll have some trouble, but I'm hoping it doesn't get knocked around too much and we'll be okay. So if I just come in here, we have to hold on to it for about a day when we're doing this. Maybe I can use activator on some of the ones that are in here. So like this one, I can localize it, try and get that one to stay on. And hold that one there. Maybe that'll be okay there, and then we can hold on to this one. We don't want it to be too wonky on there, and some bits stuck on and some not. So what I need to do is ones that look like they're being held on nicely, I can just spray. Work our way across to the end one. So there nicely. And then we have this one here. I think that should work out nicely. I think, he says. Yeah, so that's that one there. This one, I don't feel we need to necessarily glue these. They can sit there with a bit of freedom because they're not going to go anywhere. But if we want to, we can use a little stick and put some glue behind it. So what we do now is we do the other side because that's glued on really, really nicely. And it looks great, look at that. I'm going to tilt it up for you, but what I do is I pick the camera up. Yeah, just that one side there really transforms the look of this. This is really coming together, isn't it? Well, I feel it is anyway. So for the side, we'll do the same thing. I will stick it on again with the glue. And it seemed to work before. So I'm going to go with that faith that that works. If not, we can rip it all off and have another go. There will be bits of glue in the wrong places, I'm sure of it. But it's all part of the fun, right? Bit of glue in places where it shouldn't be. Okay, so we have the glue on there. You can use the activator when we're ready. The glue isn't fast setting, which is great. So we'll poke that in here. That kind of wedges in quite nicely. What we'll do is we'll hold that down to about there. Spray that with activator. So that will be on there. Then we can work our way over. Oh, it isn't completely cured. The activator is helpful, but it's not always instant with the thicker glue, I find. Make sure that's on there. I guess if you wanted to do this in a different way, you could pin it, maybe. I don't know. All I do know is that I'm having fun, and we're getting to a stage that it's looking pretty good. Providing I have no battles with things crashing into it, or any cats or birds try and destroy it, like my loft railway. There we go. We got them both in, so let's take a better look. There we are. Makes the bridge look better when you've got a fence attached to it. And a bit more going on. We've got the 4 pieces of track effectively on this. So you've got your inner rails and the outer rails. We've got the nicer, what I feel is, move that back, a nicer colour of the wood. Now we have the stones going down here. It looks more like a real seam. So that, for me, is very satisfying. If I had to stop there, so yeah, that's it now for this. I'd be all right with it. But I do feel we need some more bushes. I want to have some more bushes here, like I said before, and across here. So I'm going to go fish some out of the loft, and we'll put them on. So this is the messy loft. Been doing work on it for a while, having some modifications done, so then we have more room for things. It is a warm place though. We are having a mini summer in the UK, and what I need to do is I've got boxes with various ballasts and things and grasses. We're going to find my bush box, wherever it may be. There's one under here which has the woodland scenics bits. So we're going to get some of that and put that on. So the product's called Fine Leaf Foliage. It looks like foliage. And it has like these little twiggy bits that look like real twigs, and they've got the flock that you can normally buy stuck to it, which is great. So what we're going to do is we're going to stick it on. So I've got my pot with some PVA glue in, got my brush. Obviously, if you're using PVA glue with a brush, consider the fact that it might never be the same as it was before. It depends how well you look after it. But my plan is I've got a darker, what looks like more of a dead shade here. So we're going to use bits of that behind to act as the, let's call it the shadow. And we're going to stuff bits in like under here and stuff like that. And that'll be trying to grow out. Ultimately, we're going to hide a bit of the brickwork. So I want to try to limit that if I can. So I get my paintbrush out, nice and simple. We're going to get some glue. We're going to put it underneath. And one of the things is that you'll find with this kind of stuff is it doesn't always stick because it's not like a solid shape. So just put a bit of glue on, a little bit extra, so it can dribble off but somehow attach itself. So I'm going to wedge that down under here. But if I get my finger in there and squash it down, might need another pokey thing. Let's get a pencil and just get the end of it and just squash it and compress it in place there. And you can still see the bricks there, so it adds a nice look. So just zoom in there a bit, and you can see that that's going there. And then after that we can have some lighter shades, but you don't have to put much on, you know, that's quite a large bush in scale. If you get the mini model of me, when I stand here, you can see the size of that bush. So we can consider that when doing things. So again, we'll get our glue here. Don't worry about putting a bit too much on, because all that will happen is it will go clear when it dries. And if it does really upset you, all you have to do is put something on top of it, you know, either paint over it or go on there. So we're just going to get rid of that kind of ridge line where the two bits join up. I'm just going to put some paint across here. Just do a bit at a time. You could just go and whack loads of paint on and then stick bits on, but not paint on, glue. But you run that risk where it's going to possibly dry a bit too much and doesn't stick down the foliage in the way that you want it to. The stuff that I've got, it's that cheaper stuff from Hobbycraft, so you will find that you do get more drying time with it. So yeah, you have got a bit of room with that. But if you end up using an expensive one from, I don't know, B&Q by, I don't know, is it I forget the name of those fancy brands, but even just any of the good glue brands, you'll find that they glue dry so quickly, and you don't always get a chance to get the job done as you wanted it to. So there we are. So that we that. Put this in a bit of a line. Don't worry if it sticks over the side a little bit. Two things. First, it's your layout, and you know, just because we've got a line here doesn't mean things can't come over it. So now that's kind of gives the kind of look I was after with that. So now on this side, we're going to really dress this up. We're going to put quite a lot in. So I'm going to put some bushes back here as well, but we're also going to cover this up. So I'm going to come back once that's done and you can enjoy that. I do want to consider the fact that I like some of my weeds that are growing down. So I think we'll stop the bushes around here. So then there's a little bit of the nice embankment that we enjoyed seeing before with the weeds showing. So we'll stick this on. Start at the back here. Put my bits down. I was trying not to break off the fence. Can have some of our darker shades in here. Tuck them in. You're not always going to notice the back so much, and the back doesn't need to be light, so we don't want to draw attention to the back anyway. And keep all our eyes on the bits at the front, really. So put a few of the dark bits in here. That's going to jump up there. Hopefully it all sticks on and looks good. That's the hope, right? that it looks good. And I'm sure it will. Where there is ambition, there might hopefully be some execution, which goes with the effort. And I have to rate myself out of 10 at the end, maybe. Any bits of bush, any little random bits, you can stick them down that I've got in front of me here, pick them up, drop the bin where they can hopefully stick to the little bits of glue. So the surface, I've got a stick there. Let's stick that back there. It's pretty fun, this bit, because you're kind of grabbing bits. There's no real great plan apart from to cover this area with some greenery, really. But I do like this stuff that Wooden Scenics does. I went through a phase of every time I went to Tony's Trains of Rugby, I'd pick up another bit for another box. And these boxes, they add up in cost, so I end up with for quite a few quid's worth, which I am making use of, with the projects that I do. Okay, that's actually looking all right. I put a little bit more of the dead growth, or the growth that's dead, in places, so it's not all one uniform colour, so we don't end up having just a blanket of one colour of green. If we wanted to, come in afterwards with some of our flocks, and here, and try and blend in that way as well. If you want to as well, you could add in some colours, so for anything that's blossoming in any way, you could do that. Okay, so I would argue that's pretty good. I've just got one little bit here. Go in here. If you've got any bits that are loose but you want to keep there, you can get some hairspray and lock it down with some hairspray. That's always a nice option for you. So I'm going to let that clearly dry. It's all coming together really, really nicely. Really happy with it. What I would like to do now is figure out painting our clouds on here. A bit intimidated by it because I've not had a go at clouds, but it's whites and greys. So we can have a little go. I'll look at some pictures and then we can use those kind of references and have a little go. And if it's terrible, then it's terrible. Hopefully people are looking at the bridge more than looking at the clouds. So now it is time for clouds. I've got my brush, I've got some white paint, and I've watched a Bob Ross video and he's made it look really easy. I'm using acrylics, so it will dry very quickly. So I've watered down the acrylic a little bit, so it should go on quite thin to begin with. That's my hope, wish, and want. If it looks terrible, then it looks terrible. We're going to start and we're going to do little circles of white. And the nice thing is this blue's quite white, so you can't go too wrong and it won't be too obvious. Basically want to keep doing it until it kind of runs out of paint on the brush and I can kind of blend it in a little bit. See, straight away we've got something going on. And then we want to go do one over the top. But one that's slightly in front, so we get a little bit more paint on the brush. I'm very far from any form of expert on doing this. This isn't a video on how to paint clouds. This would be a video on how to not paint clouds. Just go over the top. So we want to bring out the colour of them. And we just end up doing a few of them. And really just have a go. Look at pictures of clouds. I've had a little glance. Tried to get inspired. It's very hard to then feel confident to do it. Just going to put in a bit more paint in the brush here. Starting thin, you can see here, we're not going to ruin it too quickly. Just going to bring a bit more in here. Because this is kind of a bit of a thin cloud. A lot of the time clouds look like animals, don't they? So if I just did a cloud that looked like a dog, it'd probably be a perfect cloud. We can come in afterwards, add some darker colours, add in some lighter colours and go from there. So I'm going to do this and I'm going to show you how it looks after I've done it, so I can focus and hopefully do a good job. I'm not going to lie, I'm really happy with how this went. Like, really happy with how it went. I used like this kind of brush, it's like a makeup brush type thing, and I went with a kind of light grey to start. Then I went with a very like off-white to go. Then I used like the titanium white by Della and Rolney, one of the Hobbycraft cheap paints, and I then built up the white tone, okay, yeah, over the top. And then after that, I wasn't really happy because it wasn't popping at me and I didn't know what it was that I was missing. So what I ended up was kind of going quite neat on it and touching in places, and it kind of brought it out really, really nicely. And I was initially thinking, what am I doing? I've ruined it already. But I don't think I have. I think it looks nice. And with practice, we get better at things. So I just need to do it more. Yes, it's not perfect. And do they look like clouds? But clouds can be any shape. So I'm going to argue there that it's okay. As for the rest of it, we've got all our shrubbery on. I think from where we were before to where we are now, I'm really pleased. This is much nicer than I think how it was, with the nicer, lighter kind of browny grey colour of the bleach stained wood. We've got our fence along the edge, which is fantastic. We've got our stones that run down here. I think it's looking good. I'm really genuinely happy with it. Oh, look at that. That looks nice, isn't it? Oh, I can't wait to kind of do the additional bits on the other layouts, adding some clouds above the trees on the forest one and everything like that. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below if you think this looks okay, what you would change, what you would add, what you wouldn't have changed from what I did. Do you think that more water would have been better, a higher level, one big area? I'm going for something that's resembling the Vale of Idol, which I'm feeling like I am representing pretty well, but I'm also doing something that I'm finding enjoyable. It's easier, sticking on fences that are already pre-made by, obviously, Peco being the main brand that produce the track for this, and the fencing. That's great. Got Wood and Scenic Shrubbery, the brand, which I have thrown into the bin now, but I told you about it before for the ballast, but obviously you can get the Wood and Scenic stuff. There's other brands that do ballast as well, but you've got to do something that feels nice. Really, really pleased, really, really happy with how this has turned out, and I think that is a wrap for this. I hope you've enjoyed watching this. Please let me know if you have. If you haven't, please also let me know about that. If you'd like to know anything that I have done and I haven't explained, ask in the comments below. I'll either mention it in reply or on the next video. To finish off, I'd like to say thank you to my patrons and my channel members for supporting the channel for all this time. It's very much appreciated, and it gives me that bit of extra enthusiasm to get this done, really. To have people behind me doing this hobby is great. If you're doing the hobby on your own, it's fine, you can do it in your own speed, but sometimes you want to get a video done and you want to do something that you enjoy, just to show a genuine excitement. So thank you as always for watching, commenting. Hopefully you've hit the like button, and yeah, come join the channel if you'd like to join it, either through the channel members, which is nice and easy, clicking the join just underneath you, or hitting the Patreon link. If not, go to Patreon, type in Double O'Neill, and you can come and be a supporter. You'll get to watch videos a couple of days early, normally a day early from when I've done the work. Anyway, thank you, take care, see you later, bye bye.